لكثير من الدول الإفريقية، مما جعل التدخل في شؤونها الداخلية أمر سهل وميسر بغرض الحصول على الدعم المادي من الدول الغنية التي لا تراعي أحياناً مبدأ عدم التدخل في شؤون الدول الإفريقية والدول الفقيرة والنامية. ولكن أقول بصراحة ووضوح أن هنالك بعض من الدول رغم دعمها المتواصل للدول الفقيرة فإنها لا تتدخل في شؤونها الداخلية، مما يجعلني أشيد بموقف تلك الدول. أما عن الموارد الطبيعية الموجودة في إفريقيا، هي التي تحتاج إلى دعم مادي وخبرة فنية وعلمية، وذلك بغرض استحداث التنمية المستدامة دون استغلال لموارد هذه الدول. ولذلك يجب أن تكون مساهمة الدول الغنية التي ترغب في إحداث تنمية في إفريقيا وآسيا أن يكون ذلك وفق مبدأ المساواة والعدالة والتعامل بالمثل، دون اللجوء إلى استغلال الثروات وإحداث غبن وتسكير تلك الدول بالمواقف الاستعمارية السابقة والتي انجلت بموجب ميثاق الأمم المتحدة. ونحن في السودان نهتم بالمحافظة على البيئة من حيث إنشاء وزارة تختص بالمحافظة على البيئة وتساهم معنا عدة دول في هذا المجال، ونشيد بأدائها. كما نجد أيضا أن هنالك كثير من الدول الآسيوية والعربية تساهم في البناء التنموي في السودان. وعلى سبيل المثال وليس الحصر، مع الإشادة التامة بموقف جمهورية الصين التي تهتم بالمشاركة في التنمية في السودان دون التدخل في شؤونها الداخلية. ورغم اختلاف المذاهب الأيديولوجية والدينية، إلا أن الصين ظلت تقف مع السودان موقفاً يستحق الإشادة. والدول التي تقف مع السودان كثيرة، مثل الهند واليابان وماليزيا. وعليه فإنني أقول أن السودان يلتزم بالمواثيق الدولية المتعلقة بالمحافظة على البيئة، وكذلك يهتم السودان بالتنمية للشعب السوداني من خلال سيادة حكم القانون واحترام حقوق الإنسان والمعاملة بالمثل مع الدول الشقيقة، ونشيد في هذا الصدد بالأمم المتحدة ومنظماتها وأشقائنا في الدول العربية التي ظلت تقدم العون للسودان في مجال التنمية والمحافظة على البيئة. سيد الرئيس، إنني أشكركم على إتاحة هذه الفرصة لأعبر لكم أن السودان بلد يلتزم بمواثيق الأمم المتحدة وسيادة حكم القانون وحقوق الإنسان واحترام الدول. مع فائق الشكر والتقدير. شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Okay, thank you, Sudan. Pakistan has the floor. We will continue and conclude this agenda item. Appreciate if you can be short.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, my delegation does not intend to make a statement. It has an observation. Mr. President, through you, I am addressing the worthy Secretary General. My delegation highly appreciates the determined intentions, laudable intentions of the Secretary General to upgrade and expand the work of the Secretariat. We fully appreciate that, and we will support that to the extent possible. However, my delegation urges the Secretary General that whenever he introduces the item and submits a report on the item, he should identify legal issues involved which are common to all of us sitting here, so that our ensuing deliberations are enlivened by thoughtful and thought-provoking comments by the participants here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Pakistan. Your observation will be noted by the Secretariat. Malaysia is the last speaker.
Mr. President, Honorable Secretary General, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Malaysia thanks the Secretariat of ALCO for the report on environment and sustainable development. Malaysia takes note of the decision of the UNFCCC COP19 in Warsaw, inter alia, which reiterates the need for finalizing a new agreement on climate change by the first quarter of 2015. Malaysia gives its assurance to continue active participation and contribution in the negotiations of this draft text. Further, Malaysia underscores the importance of the discussion on the fundamental concept of intended nationally determined contributions within the context of Article 4.7 of the Convention. This concept is clear that the extent to which developing country parties will effectively implement their commitments under the Convention will depend on the effective implementation of developed country parties of their commitments under the Convention related to financial resources and transfer of technology, and will take fully into account the economic and social development and poverty eradication are the first and overriding priorities of the developing country parties. Mr. President, Malaysia views with grave concern the lack of good faith demonstrated by many developed country parties to the Kyoto Protocol to adopt emissions reduction targets for the second commitment period, as well that parties have left or have never ratified the Kyoto Protocol. Malaysia believes that these parties should, in the true spirit of the Convention, undertake to reduce greenhouse gases in comparable manner to the Kyoto Protocol second commitment period. Although Malaysia is not legally bound to any commitments towards reducing its GHG emissions under the Kyoto Protocol, through the Clean Development Mechanism, Malaysia voluntarily participates in globally reducing emissions of GHG. Mr. President, Malaysia welcomes the creation of the High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development, or HLPF, to replace the Commission on Sustainable Development, and looks forward to this forum to open a new chapter in sustainable development governance. It is Malaysia's hope that the forum will follow up on the implementation of sustainable development and will avoid overlap with existing structures, bodies, and entities in a cost-effective manner. As this is an important development, Malaysia is of the view that this annual session could give mandate to the ALCO Secretariat to carry out appropriate study on the issues as mandated to the high-level forum, particularly on issues related to the implementation of sustainable development commitments and consideration of new and emerging sustainable development challenges. The study could later guide ALCO member states in their deliberations at the high-level forum. Last but not least, Malaysia would like to support ALCO in urging ALCO member states to consider transforming its economy towards green economy that would provide new investment and business opportunities. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank Malaysia. I should apologize to South Africa. I missed their name out, and I'm sorry for that negligence. And sometimes negligence comes from the age. I cannot change it. South Africa has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished delegates. We have the unenviable position of interrupting you as you're about to go to lunch. But this is an important topic, the issue of environment and sustainable development, and so we would wish to address you, but we will focus our comments due to time on climate change. Climate change threatens to reverse the development gains which we have already made and to hamper our efforts to develop our economies and eradicate poverty among our citizens. The urgency of climate change challenge is highlighted by the fact that the United Nations Secretary General is hosting a climate summit in the next few days on the eve of the opening of the next session of the General Assembly. ALCO members should take full advantage of this opportunity to call on the international community to work together in the multilateral system of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change to agree on legally binding commitments for all parties to address climate change based on their common but differentiated responsibility and respective capabilities. This means that developed countries must take the lead by ambitiously reducing their greenhouse gas emissions, by providing the necessary means of implementation to developing countries, to enable us to adapt to climate change and transition to low-carbon economies. These are necessary conditions for sustainable development, to grow our economies, lift our peoples out of poverty, and to become competitive participants in the global economy. Mr. President, South Africa believes that it's only through a multilateral system that the international community can successfully address climate change. A single country or small groups of countries acting on their own will not be able to keep us within the safe limits of warming, nor would we be possible to mobilize efforts in adaptation at a sufficiently large scale if our system is merely the sum total of voluntary initiatives. We should therefore remain focused on our global goal of reaching a comprehensive, inclusive multilateral agreement under which all members of the international community will contribute according to the principles of equity and common but differentiated responsibility and respective capability. Only a legally binding agreement that is rule-based and fair can succeed in building sufficient trust to unlock the high levels of ambition. The 2015 agreement must also accord adaptation the same priority as mitigation. In this regard, South Africa has championed the adaptation of a global goal for adaptation as part of the new agreement in order to give legal recognition to the fact that adaptation is a global responsibility and that adaptation action and the support that it will require very much depends on the level of mitigation ambition. On the road to Paris, we should also be mindful of the crucial importance of the Lima conference later this year, where parties need to agree on the scope of the process of parties' intended nationally determined contributions, information that must accompany these INDCs, as well as the elements for a draft negotiating text. Furthermore, we should give priority to the work on pre-2020 ambitions under the ad hoc working group of the Durban Platform for Enhanced Action. Mr. President, we therefore urge all members of ALCO to come out strongly at the upcoming international meetings on climate change, including the Secretary-General's Climate Summit, in support of strengthening the multilateral rules-based system through a legally binding, ambitious, equitable agreement at the Paris Conference next year. I thank you.
Thank you, South Africa. I see no more requests for the floor on this agenda item, and therefore I consider the agenda item closed, and I'm sure that the remarks, the observations, and proposals will be taken note by the Secretariat while preparing the report on this agenda item. Ladies and gentlemen, one agenda item has been left over for the afternoon meeting, and that is status and treatment of refugees. Well, in order to best benefit from our time, I suggest that we all should be present sharp 2:30 here to first deal with the, or taken up rather, with the agenda item status and treatment of refugees, and then to benefit from the presence of the distinguished President of the International Law Commission, to whom I extend my warm welcome. So, I wish to adjourn the meeting at this point. I wish you a happy and delicious lunch, and enjoy the rest of the day. The meeting is adjourned.